my husband thinks it's short. Just like like, okay, don't touch me anymore.
We're ready, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our first December meeting. I think we have someone from the ministry. Yes, we do. Please lead us in a prayer.
Let's pray. Father, we just thank you for another beautiful day, Lord, in your presence. Lord, we just thank you for each of our community leaders and their families, Lord, and the time that they dedicate to making decisions for our community. Would you bless them tonight, Lord? Would you let your peace and your wisdom prevail in this meeting, Lord? Just be with us throughout everything today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Jody, would you open the meeting with a pledge?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Consider the approval of the city council meeting minutes from the November 4th and November 18th meetings, which both had closed sessions. Are there any questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We have no public hearings tonight. We do have several special presentations. The first one is a presentation to Corporal Gibbs. Chief?
Good evening. You know, as a chief of police, one of the best parts of my job is when I hear from a citizen about something that one of our officers did. And I'm just going to read what she wrote to me, which will pretty much explain why I'm giving this award. Corporal Gibbs has impressed me with his professionalism, knowledge, and ability to manage difficult situations at Rolla High School as a school resource officer. He has a strong presence at the Rolla High School, and he's always quick to offer help or insight to all of us. Corporal Gibbs is proactive and has mitigated the negative effects of numerous incidents in the district. Today, which was on November 20th, he saved a life. As a high school nurse, I respond to emergencies at Rolla Technical Center, and today I received a call regarding a student sustaining a severe laceration there. 911 was called, and I quickly went over to stabilize the student until emergency services arrived. Corporal Gibbs saw me running towards my car with my trauma bag, and he told me to get in his patrol car. I got in with him and filled him in on what had occurred, and we got to the student in less than 2 minutes. Upon our arrival, RTI staff was holding pressure on what appeared to be a severe arterial bleed. Corporal Gibbs immediately took command of the scene, placing a tourniquet within 3 seconds, and treated the wound for a full 3 minutes before emergency services arrived. The student's outcome would have been vastly different if Corporal Gibbs had not been there. The injured student not only lived to tell his story, but he also maintained full use of his arm. I would not have been able to help the student in the way that Corporal Gibbs was seamlessly able to do, and I have great respect for him. Proud to live and work in a community with such unmatched service and protection. Now, part of our job description is we are there to protect and to save people's lives, but occasionally somebody goes above and beyond. Corporal Gibbs is cross-trained as an EMT with our department, and he was able to bring that training to bear and literally save this student's arm, if not his life. And for that, I am giving him a life-saving award.
Thank you. Well done. Next presentation is Rodney's quarterly report from RMU.
Thank you, Mayor. quick. Okay, good evening. This is kind of a standard kind of routine for us. So what I'm doing is doing our fourth quarter end of the year report. So this is the end of our fiscal year. Got some updated information from what you've seen in the actual report that's out there. There is a fourth quarter report out on our website, which people can see. But again, this is kind of just a quick summary. And then at the end, I'm going to do some highlights of kind of how we finished our year. So I'm going to quick go. I'm just going to go to the bottom line, comparing this year to last year. And these numbers, I said, are updated from what was in the report. This is after our period 14. So this is, we've made some audit adjustments. Our auditor's been here, and these should be the final numbers we see. That should be included in the audit. Can't guarantee that, but we'll have an audit. Should be presented and prepared and presented to the Board of Public Works at the end of December. But if you go to that bottom line, after audit, after this period 14, comparing this year to last year, we're down to about $500,000 in income. But again, not a significant, really big change for us. So something we would have expected and kind of normal for weather events, those kinds of things, when you take those into account. Talk about just a few electric things going around town. There is a lot of activity going on in town. Just in the last quarter, Fairfield Inn is coming up nicely over on Old Wire Road. You've seen some work now. We got MS&T Coomer Design Center going up on 10th Street across from Gail Bullman. We've got another activity, expansion of the Civil Engineering Building on North Pine. We're helping a little bit with. We got a nice development coming in off McCutcheon Road, St. Maria's to Tandra. I think that's going to be a very nice development. Our crews are over there working now, getting the electric installed in that subdivision. That's going to be a very nice addition to the city. And then I'll just mention we've got some other small development. Taco Bell is coming along quickly, and then Sonic hopefully will be coming out of the ground shortly. So some good things going on. That electric department is supporting those activities in addition to others. On the water side, mainly this is going to be two things: water main installations and service line replacements. Our water crew has finished up work on Olive Street downtown. 5th Street, we had to do a little bit of work over in the Kroger's area. There's new infill development going in there. We had to replace a block of water main over there to make sure they could have adequate water service for that new facility. And then again, up on McCutcheon Drive, associated with St. Maria's, the city has been redoing McCutcheon Drive on the north end, and so we've replaced the water main for about a quarter mile or so. So that was all done, so when the new road's in, we won't have to be back in there, and it provides a nice connection point for the St. Maria's. Our service line crew has been working and finished up quite a few things. They've been working the Wild Horse subdivision down on South Rolla Street, Suter Lane. They've worked several other locations. And kind of where they're going next, the service line crew is going to Country Air subdivision. That's out on Highway O, on the south side of town. They'll be working there for a while until they get those done. And our water main crew, we finished up a whole lot of work over in the East Meadow area. There's one street that we had intentions of getting done over there. We had to get pulled off to do the McCutcheon work and stuff downtown while school is out of session. We're back over there working on that street now. Unfortunately, normally we try and coordinate this work very closely with Public Works, and we had a little bit of a bust this year. And so that street did get micro-sealed, but we're back in cutting the micro-seal. We got to get this main done. We've had a lot of leaks over the last 4 or 5 years, and so we've got to get it replaced. So we just have to bear some more expense to get that fixed and done right. So they're going to give you an update of where we've been and where we're going. And we'll be doing that work over the winter months. We'll be using coal patch and chipping, and it's a little bit of millings, but hopefully mostly coal patch, so we can try and have a decent surface for that neighborhood while we're working over there. Just some miscellaneous things. Again, I'm not going to hit on a whole lot. A little bit on MPUA and our power plants. So our power plants, all the different facilities have been running real well all year. The only thing we had a little bit of trouble with is Some of the coal plants, if they're associated with the river, we've had a lot of water this year, so a lot of flooding issues on the rivers, and so we've had some rail curtailments getting some coal into those facilities. But other than that, all the facilities have been running real well. And then, if you're interested, our pool, as a big pool, the 35 cities, we had an all-time peak this year of 510 megawatts. Rolla was a little over 50 megawatts, so about 11% of the pool, 10-11% of the pool. That happened in July, a little earlier than normal. Normally it happens in the August timeframe. But our energy sales as a pool were 6% higher than 2017. It's an all-time record. And then our peak happened on July 18th of 54 megawatts. Now that's not our peak. That's just our coincident peak with the pool. Our normal peak is pushing about 70 megawatts. It usually happens in the wintertime. That's when we usually see our highest loads. So with that, I just want to hit a couple highlights of the year since we're at the end of our fiscal year. So I just want to kind of give you a couple highlights. I want to stress we're financially sound, very healthy organization. In 2019, we provided almost $1.5 million in rate relief to our customers through our power cost adjustments and water cost adjustments. Now we've changed the rates around. We've eliminated the PCA and WCA, but in doing that, we've eliminated the electric power cost adjustment in favor of a permanent revenue reductions in the electric department. So those are effective now. Our electric and water reserves are fully funded. Our retirement program is 114% funded. That took a lot of effort and dedication by the board to do that. Plus, the market has recovered a lot, which also helped to that bottom line of getting that to its funding status. Power supply costs projected to be stable or lower in the upcoming years. But again, that's with the normal caveats. That's assuming power plants stay healthy and stay running. We don't have any new legislation that impacts us. Like I said, if status quo being the way it is, that's kind of where we're projecting it. Always subject to change, but our outlook right now for the next several years is looking very good. Our renewable, you might recall this from a few years back, we offered a renewable energy rate, was mainly backed by wind power. That was taken by two entities in town, MS&T and Brewer Science. They're beneficiaries of that rate structure and be able to get those renewable energy credits. I know Brewer, it's a big deal for them. I think MS&T is about 80% of their energy comes from renewable. Brewer Science approaching 100% coming from this renewable product. They pay a small premium, kind of like our solar communities rate. Solar communities, you pay more. Just kind of update on that, we have 38 subscribers in our solar communities program, using about 5% of our solar allocation. So we got a lot more we could do there. So if you know anyone interested in participating in that, let me know. Send them our way. We're still hopeful of getting some Western Kansas wind as a replacement power source in the 2022-2023 timeframe. But again, that's subject to being successful. We expect some opposition to that in the legislative session coming up in the spring. So we'll be watching that very closely. I should be getting an update this week. We're having MOPEP and MPUA board meetings this week, and I should be getting an update kind of what Invenergy, who is now the new owner of this facility, what they're expecting and how they're planning to get this project built. We did a water meter replacement. That program is mostly complete. We're down to just the really hard meters to change out now. Ones that you need to have arms about 4 feet long to get to the water meter, or very difficult, a lot of rusted bolts, those kinds of things, getting those changed out. But we don't have too many of those to go. See a lot more continued development in student housing. Finished a big project on Pine Street. Got another one starting on 11th Street, so we're still seeing some of that student housing coming in. The one on 11th Street is where the old Giddy Goat used to be. So there's a 3-story building plan there. So we're still seeing some student housing being built. Just some real quick updates, kind of where we're at with meter counts and those types of things. Electric and water meter counts still up for the year, about almost 1% in electric meter counts going up. Not quite that fast on the water side. As I said last year, and I think we're seeing this trend, this is a nationwide trend, we're seeing lower sales per meter, meaning that energy efficiency, energy conservation, things that people aren't thinking about anymore, are reducing the amount of energy, the amount of water that people use in their homes and their businesses. So we're seeing lower sales per meter. But changes in our rate structure are insulating us from those fluctuations. That doesn't mean we're immune to them, but we're trying to adjust our rates to make sure we're following that trend. So can I give you some graphs? Graphs are always good. Our electric meter count again. This is from the period 07 to 2019. So in the 12 years, we've grown 850 meters, or about 70 a meter. That's kind of what our growth pattern has been, typically for the last 10 years or so. Our peak demand, this is the demand, this is our actual peak demand when it happens. This is usually in the wintertime, but we're seeing more energy as far as a peak goes. That continues to go up. Maybe more heating equipment with heat pumps with electric heat. Can't really figure out what the trend is here, but our peak that we hit in the wintertime has been steadily going up. But conversely, the energy we're buying is going down. It kind of goes back to that. We're seeing fewer sales per meter, so we're seeing energy conservation, those kinds of things happening. So we've actually, over the last decade, on average, we're buying less power every year as we go on. So even though we have growth, Menards, Academy Sports, all these new developments coming in, we're actually seeing our sales actually dwindle, even we're adding more meters in our system. Kind of just an all-in cost. This is kind of taking what our average wholesale cost has been. You can see it's just trending up slightly. It averages a little less than 1% a year over the last decade, and again, that's a pretty low number. So we're pretty happy with that. It's up and down, but generally it's been what I'd say almost flat. So that's a good thing, and I think that goes a testament to our pool and how we've been able to manage our power supply costs. Kind of same on the water side. I only have 2 more slides left. Again, on the water meters, we've added 900 water meters in the last 12 years. Again, pretty steady growth there. But again, if we look at how much water we're actually selling to the customers, you can see that number has been trending down over the last 12 years. That's important for us because obviously that lowers that revenue targets and makes us adjust rates. It's also equally important for the sewer department because they're using our meter reads to bill for sewer. So in the 12 years I'm showing here, we've lost about 170 million gallons of sales between 2007 to today. So that is a significant change there. So makes the water meter replacement program, doing those replacements important. That recaptures some of that lost revenue if we had inaccurate meters on the retail side. So those are some of the things we're doing to try and make sure we're financially sound. So with that, I'd be happy to answer.
Rodney, I got 4 quick ones.
4.
The operating loss for the year, operating income was just under $400,000 or so. You must have had some number budgeted because of the rate reductions.
Yeah.
So how is that loss versus what you thought it would be?
So on our net, that's our net income, but below that line, we have capital budget. We have, this includes depreciation, which is not non-cash expense. So actually on a cash basis, we're actually up for the year.
Oh, okay. Second question. Cedar Lane and Wild Horse subdivisions are relatively new.
Yes.
Why are service lines being replaced there already?
I'm happy to bring in an example, but our copper service lines in new subdivisions are failing at a high rate. And we aren't sure if that's a cathodic protection. We've been bedding everything in clean rock. If it's a limestone, if it's a corrosion issue, we also think the material is inferior to what you could have bought 50 years ago or 40 years ago. So it's a combination of a lot of things. So we had been hiring a crews to come in and do that, hit about 150 or so a year. Last year we decided to actually create an actual crew to do the work, and it's a good cost-benefit ratio doing it ourselves.
And the service line is from the main to the meter, right?
From the main, but generally to the meter. So we're hitting what I'd say the easy ones now. The new subdivisions where we're having problems and everything's in clean rock, a lot of times all we can do, we can dig a small hole over the top of the water main, dig the meter pit up, hook onto that line, and actually pull it through without tearing up a lot of street. We've been pretty successful at doing that. Not always, but usually pretty successful. Those are what I call the easy ones. When we start working on 5th Street and 9th Street, where we've got older homes, everything is in dirt, we're gonna have to do a lot more excavation.
Are you putting copper back, or are you putting?
No, we're going back with PEX, which is a plastic product.
Next question, the Grain Belt Express. So the planned opposition, is that to reverse what was done in the legislature last year?
It's to reverse actually what was done by the Public Service Commission after about 3 rounds of public
Right.
hearings and all the testimony and stuff. The project has been approved. The legislative effort, it's really a primary land rights issue. Farmers and et cetera in that corridor don't want the use of eminent domain. That's kind of what the issue is. And so the legislative efforts are to basically prohibit the use of eminent domain for this specific
Okay,
project.
so the PUC finally approved,
Public Service Commission.
Public Service Commission.
Did approve it, yes.
Did approve it. So now the legislature, under political pressure, could change that.
Correct.
Got that, okay.
Correct. So we'll be watching that very closely this spring. Last year, there was efforts to overturn it. Last year, that died on the last day on the Senate calendar, so.
Just for the public's benefit, remind them how much that means to Rolla in a year.
Yeah, so for us, the Greenbelt Express, it's a wind project designed to bring wind energy from western Kansas. Actually, the main project is to bring it from western Kansas to the East Coast. The municipal utilities in the state have negotiated an off-ramp to drop some of that power into the state. It's a significant savings for our group. So when I mentioned on my slide, lower rates, potentially lower rates in the future, if that project is built, it would replace a contract, and we could see upwards of $1.2 million of savings in Rolla. It's significant. And that is across the board for all of our pool cities who are participating. Plus, I think we have 4 other municipals that are not part of the pool that are participating as well. Rolla, even we have Columbia participating, some pretty big cities. We're actually the ones that can benefit the most dollar-wise. So it's a significant project for us, very important for us.
Last question. The MOPEP demand charge cap.
Yeah.
Can you give me a layman's explanation of what that's the
okay.
first time I've ever seen that.
So prior to 2012, and we talked this at our last board meeting. So prior to 2012, the way we build ourselves, so think MOPEP, we're a co-op, and so we have to develop rates of how we bill ourselves individually as cities. So prior to 2012, we basically, all the fixed cost or capital assets that we had, any charge associated with that went to a demand charge, and then the energy produced went to an energy charge. So you had 2 components, much like we bill our big customers. What was happening though with that methodology, our demand charges are getting up about $18,000, $18,500, which would equate to about $18 demand charge. And the other thing that's happening is the spread between the all-in cost between our small cities and the big cities, or ones with good load factor, was getting bigger and bigger. And so in 2013, we created what's called the demand cap. What that meant is we artificially set our demand rate, and this year it's $7,800, to limit the spread between the highest cost city and the lowest cost city to about 11.5%.
So those overhead charges are allocated by communities' size, I assume.
Well, it's really more by load factor, which is another component in our rate. So, so the more industry you have operating 24 hours a day, the lower your rates generally are compared to a bedroom community who doesn't have a lot of things going on at night. And so the spread was getting big, so this artificially closed that gap. And so we calculate that demand cap every year. So now what we're doing is looking at potentially changing those wholesale rates again. We're projecting our costs for all the cities to go down, so it's a good time to make a change. This is and the markets have changed. A lot of things have changed in the industry, and how we bill ourselves how we did it in 2012 may not make the most sense today. So we're reviewing those kinds of things now, and we expect meetings. We're going to talk about it in the board meetings this week. We'll be talking about it 2 or 3 times over the spring. Maybe by the summer, making the decision of how we're going to change those wholesale rates to make it more, I guess, compatible with the way we're being billed and how the energy markets are working today.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Rodney? David?
I just had a quick follow-up on the grain belt. Is there a point which becomes either a go or no go? What are the trigger points that allow either like, hey, we can actually start doing it versus it's dead? Like, what are the points that either make it a go or make it a done?
I'm not sure. I think it's going to be up to Invenergy to make that call. I think they're being very cautious about spending too much money on it. As far as we know, they've already bought a lot of these. They bought easements they'd already committed for, so they're making efforts in the areas and trying to acquire more easements. At the same time, they know there's this legislative effort, so they're trying to find a balance between the two. I'll know more probably after this week, because they're going to speak at our MPUA meetings and kind of give us an update of what their plans are.
Are
But-
there chances of law, regardless of what the legislature does, this then go through the court system?
Probably going to go through court system. The other thing is the company, and again, as I understand it, the company right now has a right to build this line. They've been granted the right to build it by the Public Service Commission. If the legislature overturns that, and they've spent money and got allocations, they're doing things, and the legislature overturns it, it's a taking by the state, and so that could be grounds for a lawsuit. Because they've acquired something, they've been doing something that was legally granted to them, and now it could be.
So who would have to pay those costs?
I don't know how that's going to be the developers. It won't be ours, that'll be the developers to worry about.
Any other questions for Rodney? Thanks, Rodney.
Thank you very much.
Next presentation is the Chamber's third quarter report.
Okay, hi everybody. So tonight I'm going to be talking tourism, third quarter. Your packet, you guys have that. It has all the detailed information. I'm just going to go over a couple of highlights. I wanted to start with our income. So this is a snapshot here of motel tax income for this year. First quarter, second quarter, third quarter, our year to date versus our budget. So everything's looking good. This is a snapshot of third quarter motel tax revenue for the past 5 years. You can see 2019 is down slightly, so we are kind of tracking that, staying focused on, hopefully we end the year good. This here's a snapshot of our expenses. You can see our year-to-date expenses versus our budget. We're right in line with what we had budgeted. And now I would like to go over some highlights of our marketing efforts for the year. I did want to talk to you a little bit about St. Pat's 5K and Beer Run that we hosted in March. This is always a successful event, a fun way to kick off St. Pat's. We had 236 participants. The event raised over $4,000, which we donate back to some type of a tourism cause. This year, we donated that money back to Ozark Actors Theater. The next thing I wanted to highlight is the Great Race. We hosted the Great Race for a lunch stop several years ago, and in 2020 we have the opportunity to host them again for lunch. If you're not familiar with the Great Race, it is a classic rally for street legal vintage automobiles, and it is a really fun opportunity to see some really amazing vintage cars. Amy has met with the organizing crew for the Great Race. Last time we hosted them, they did stop downtown on Pine Street because it was a Route 66 theme for their race. They don't have Route 66 themed this year. We're thinking that they're going to come in on Highway 72, and we're going to kind of veer them over towards Detropolis for a lunch stop. And of course, this year we will once again host a little festival. The community will be invited to come out and take a look at all of the really neat cars and, you know, rally them on as they head out of the community again. So something we have been involved with is a new committee called Explore the Fort. Amy actually serves on this committee. If you're familiar with SOP, the Sustainable Ozark Partnership in St. Robert, Waynesville area, they formed this committee as a way to highlight the communities outside of Fort Leonard Wood. So they're working on developing, we have a Facebook page, but working on developing a website to really showcase all of the things that there is happening in all of these communities outside the fort. So the people, the soldiers and the families that are stationed at Fort Leonard Wood can easily access information from all of our communities and see what kind of fun things we have going on at the moment. And the logo that you see in front of you, Amy actually did design that for the group, so we're kind of excited about that. It's really pretty. Okay, something else that we kicked off this year is text alerts. So if you text the word Rolla to 57838, you will start receiving text alerts of things that are happening in the Rolla community. The chamber does have one also, but those are two separate groups that you would sign up for. And this is really a fun way to stay informed of all the things happening in our community, and there's a lot happening in the Rolla community, especially this weekend. So these text alerts kind of keep you informed of everything that's happening, and there's a quick link on there to go to our website, visitrolla.com, so you can get more details if those events are of interest to you. So if you guys have not signed up for our text alerts, I highly encourage you to do so. The next thing I want to talk about is our Be Our Guest campaign. So the purpose of this campaign is to invite tour group planners to come to Rolla, experience what Rolla has to offer, and then hopefully they will bring their groups back to our community. So we did a big mailing to some tour group planners. And of course, if they're interested, we will accommodate them overnight, take them out to dinner, and treat them to a show at Ozark Actors Theater or Leach. Of course, the time that they come, if there's something else happening, of course, our staff would work with them on that as well. We just recently sent these postcards out. We have had 3 tour group planners contact us already. They're not necessarily wanting to take us up on our offer, but it piqued their interest in bringing their groups to Rolla. So hopefully we'll see those groups in 2020. Right now we're in the middle of our Give Christmas. This is an opportunity that we host each year for the community to give back to some needy children. This was formerly known as our Angel Tree. We do have angels at the visitor center that are available for adoption. Each angel does represent a child 18 and under that is here in Rolla, and whatever gifts they get with this Give Christmas program, that's their Christmas this year. So we did have over 100 angels. We're down to about 50 at this moment. So of course, if anyone in the community would like to adopt a child for Christmas, you could come in, grab the angel of your choice, go buy the Christmas presents that are listed on their angel, and then bring them back to us by Friday, December the 13th. A lot of people don't have the opportunity to go shopping, so we do take monetary donations, and then our staff does all the shopping for the angels that are left remaining when it gets close to our deadline. It's a wonderful way to give back to the kids. And when we work closely with this program, so we get to hear some of the great stories, and the families are always super excited to get anything. So, anything that you purchase them that they would be super thrilled with. So again, if you get an opportunity, please come out and adopt one of the angels. And that program's going till December 13th. Next, I want to talk about some of our marketing efforts, both print and digital. I wanted to kick off with, we did rewrap our billboards. We have 2 billboards along I-44 on both east and westbound sides. This is what our new billboard looks like. You can see it highlights some of the things happening in the Rolla community. We do try to drive traffic to the visitor center on our billboards, but if people are not interested in stopping at the visitor center, at least it has visitrolla.com, which is our website, and they can go there and see all of the wonderful things that Rolla has to offer. Hopefully they'll stop off and experience Rolla before they just pass on through. Again, the text alerts that I'd already talked about, periodically we will post this on social media and encourage people to sign up for those text alerts so they can stay in the know of what is happening. Now this is a look at some of our social media videos that we do. So I'm going to show you a lot of photos, but we really have been playing a lot with video. These are short videos. You don't even need to have your sound on your phone or your computer. You can easily read the message that pops across there. Again, they're really short and very informative. When you look at the full post, there will be a link to visitrolla.com so you can get more information about what is happening. We try to highlight, sometimes they're just one event specific, but sometimes it's all of the things that are happening for the season or for the weekend when you have a lot of things that are happening. So this is just a fun way to really show off what we have to offer in the community. This is a snapshot of some ads that we posted for the St. Pat's 5K and beer run. We had several different styles that I wanted to show you. So again, these are online social media ads. The banner ad at the bottom corner, that was on Phelps County Focus's website. So if you click on those, again, it takes you to visitrolla.com and you can easily register for those events. This is a snapshot of an ad that we placed in the Newcomer's Guide, the Phelps County Focus printed this year. And these next couple of slides, this is our ad campaign in some magazines. We really advertise a lot in Missouri Life and Show Me Missouri magazines. The whole list is in your packet. But you can kind of see, depending on what is happening at the time of when we're placing the ad, that's going to be the message that's showcased in the photo that is on the advertisement. And then, of course, we're always trying to drive traffic to visitrolla.com so people can see not only what's happening maybe with that picture that, like summer fun, Splash Zone and Fugitive Beach and all the cruise-ins and Summerfest and stuff like that, but you can also see what our community has to offer on visitrolla.com because the whole community is listed on there. Everything to do, see, explore, all of it. So this is a series of images that we post on our social media campaigns that have been happening throughout the year. I put together this slideshow so you could see the variety of things that we post. Sometimes they're event specific. Sometimes it might be like the Sweet Treats Tuesdays thing. That's something that Amy does that, highlights some fun things. So anyways, this is just a look at the variety of things that we're posting. You'll see that all of these will link back to visitrolla.com. Again, we're trying to drive traffic back to our website so you can get the full details of everything happening in the community. Or if there's a link to maybe the cruise-ins Facebook page and stuff like that, we'll have all of that on there as well. But just some fun images to really highlight what a wonderful community that we have. Some of these are tourism-related businesses. You just saw the Great Escape. So really trying to drive people to get out, explore the community, or come to Rolla if you don't already live here and explore what we have to offer. Participate in some of these fun events. Just get out there and get active. So I think this is the second time through. Next, I'd like to talk about our grants, and I believe that you guys are all aware with the tourism partnership grants and the sports tourism grants that we offer. So far to date, just for this year, we have awarded 9 tourism partnership grants totaling $11,250. So the tourism partnership grant goes to events and meetings that are being held in the community. So far, these have funded the Polar Plunge, the Route 66 Summerfest, a chemical engineer regional conference, Ozark Actors Theater, the Haunted Mine, Oktoberfest, Celebration of Nations, the Phelps County Fair, and the Chris Kendall Market and Lichternaut that is happening this weekend. Sports tourism grants, these are going to support sporting events in the community. We have awarded 7 of those, and that totals $25,250. Some of those that we've funded have been the Missouri Mine Rescue Competition, Rolla Rockets, the Rolla Saddle Club, the Rolla High School's Holiday Basketball Tournament, Licking Summer Camps, which is super huge for our community, brings a lot of people in, the Heroes Marathon, and the recent Galloping Gobbler 5K, 10K. So it does support small events to huge events that really impact our community. You can see sports grants kind of consume that budget the most. They're funded in larger amounts because they're usually held over a longer period of time. They are staying at hotels for a multiple period of time. They're a huge impact to the community. We love sporting events because it just really brings a lot of people in. They're staying in your community and they're spending a lot of money in your community. So we really like to fund them so we can keep them here. And then land and building issues. The only thing I have to update you guys on is roofs. We are replacing the roofs on all of the buildings at the chamber property. We replaced the roof on the visitor center a couple years ago, but now it's really time to replace all the other roofs. They are supposed to start sometime this week, weather depending. So we're going to kick off the new year with some new roofs. And that's really all that I have for you guys today. If there's any questions.
Stevie, I got a couple. First of all, as a comment, your enthusiasm and the group's enthusiasm and these marketing pictures is absolutely outstanding.
Thank you.
And it's so, until you see these, sometimes it's so easy to forget how many activities we have in this town in a given year.
Yes.
So, a lot of value in showing that summary.
Thank you.
I have a question on the money.
Yes.
And I don't want to put you on the spot, so if you don't feel comfortable answering it,
Sure.
we can defer. The first two slides,
Yes.
you showed the quarterly revenue. Revenue to date was 216,000 and change versus the budget. So I kind of looked at that and said, well, at 3%, that would suggest that there's close to $3 million difference between budgeted and the real world. But on the next slide, you showed third quarter by quarter
Uh-huh.
the motel receipts, and you have the same 216.
Uh-huh.
So I guess one of these might not be right.
It's third quarter year to date. It's like the whole third quarter, not just third quarter, but third quarter year to date on the second slide. The first slide
Okay,
is
so both
first
of them are
quarter-
year to date,
I was third quarter year to date.
both cases.
Well, the first slide is first, second, third, year to date, and budget. So, yeah, my second slide is third quarter, first, second, third, all combined in.
For each year.
Yes.
Okay,
Only up to the third quarter of each year.
right. So
Right?
the graphs are going down, so that would suggest that.
Yeah, our third quarter year to date for 2019 is below where we were at last year in 2018.
And that was
the
below
same-
the year before.
Yes. We did lose a hotel at the end of 2017, which could impact us slightly. But also there was a lot of construction in the community. Those construction workers were staying in the hotels. So that impacted us some. And then also we did lose, we've lost a couple of events. One was Project Lead the Way. That was a huge impact to the hotels as well. So yeah, we're hoping that with the building of the new hotel, which will also have more rooms and it's more of a upscale hotel, that it'll help with the motel tax.
You used to show occupancy.
That's at my
rates.
year-end report.
Okay.
With
So are tho-
benchmarks.
Is that data correlating with those occupancy rates?
And it's been a while since I've looked at occupancy. Is it slightly down with our STAR report?
Occupancy is down
Slightly.
slightly, but revenue is not as a big a change in terms of decrease because obviously as each year goes up, so does revenue, just because
Inflation,
the hotel rates
price
are gonna
rises.
fluctuate.
Mhm.
So yeah, so occupancy looks like it's down a little bit more, but luckily, like I said, with the rates increase.
Kind of
smaller
offsets
gap.
a smidge.
Thank
We've
you.
looked into it, we've talked to the hotels, and that's kind of like Stevie mentioned,
That's
the
what you're
trends we're seeing.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Stevie? Rachel?
Yeah, so I was really interested to sort of read all about this, and I really wanted to look at sort of the marketing efforts. And I wanted you to explain to me, because I just wasn't sure, sort of what's the kind of target audience? It seems like the sort of print media is maybe a different one than the digital media?
Well, we go after leisure travelers. Our audience is anyone that would like to come to Rolla. Do you want to elaborate on it anymore? Yeah, come on up. Amy is the one that places our ads.
Okay.
So maybe she could answer it a little
I mean,
bit
they
better.
really all have the same theme if you kind of think about it. And a lot of the print, and probably some of those that you were seeing, those are in like Show Me Missouri Magazine and Missouri Life Magazine. Those are more geared towards the traveler. They're going to be, I mean, their demographic is probably a little bit older, probably the over 50 with people that are kind of retired, have money, those types of things. So that's kind of what we gear that towards. Obviously, our social media is instant. So your social media followers are going to be anybody from the age of 15 on up to the age of 80. So that varies. And the thing that we try to do, I mean, we're realistic. We know we're not Branson. So it's just kind of like, I think the mayor said, there's a lot of things going on, and we try to make people aware of that. Something I've really been trying to push, and you know, our social media is not just geared towards people outside of Rolla, it's also geared towards people inside of Rolla, because you'd be surprised there's a lot of people in our own community that don't know that Ozark Actors Theater exists.
Yeah.
But something we're really working on too is we want our own community to be advocates for Rolla. That way, if somebody comes into town, be a shop owner or somebody working at a restaurant and go, hey, what's going on this weekend? They don't go, nothing, and send them to St. Louis. With our social media, constantly keeping them up to date of, hey, the parade's going on, or the canine plunge is going on, or there's this 5K going on. It just makes people aware of what's going on. So I encourage you all to follow our social media channels. That way, you guys are aware of what's going on. So again, it is geared towards the traveler, but we also want our own community to be advocates and proud of what's going on in Rolla. So.
Just another follow-up on that. So the kinds of text alerts and Facebook and Instagram posts, that's all, how much of that is actual advertising purchases, and how much of that is just, we're posting stuff to keep our Facebook and to build our brand, and hopefully people start following?
Building the brand definitely is going
Okay.
on. We do some paid advertising with bigger events.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's been something that we've kind of been exploring more, like I'd say really hot and heavy this year.
Yeah.
If you've ever done any Facebook advertising, it's super cheap.
Yeah.
So
And you can
that's kind of what
directly
we're,
target your audience.
and you can directly target your audience. So if we know we have a big 5K in town or the Heroes
Yeah.
Marathon, we can specifically go in there and say, hey,
Okay.
we're targeting people that are interested in running 5Ks or
Yeah.
sporting events. Or, if it's something that's family fun, then we're kind of targeting
Yeah.
those age groups with families and stuff. So
Okay.
that is something that is actually more in our budget this year, is to put money more towards Facebook and that type of marketing.
Yeah, 'cause
Actually, but it's cheaper than a
Well,
lot
it's
of your.
a, it's
get
a
a lot
lot of traditional media, I noticed,
Yeah.
which was kind of
Yeah.
surprising. And with the text alerts, how many sort of subscribers do you have at this point?
We have, we just started that, so we have around 100,
Okay.
and we are kind of pushing that on our social media as well. And every time we push it, we get a few more. Again, that's a pretty new thing that we just started.
I think the text alerts are going to be more local people or people within a closer driving range
Yeah.
that could actually come quickly. Because if you
Okay.
live in another state, but you just come to Rolla maybe in the summertime, you're probably, you might subscribe to the text alerts,
Yeah.
but you're probably not going to be able to participate with everything. So
Yeah.
it will be more local people.
A lot of what we do for our tourism advertise is event driven, because, let's be real, that's
Okay.
what would honestly bring somebody to Rolla, is a lot of our events, including things like Ozark Ector Cedar that are here all the time. But that's
So
kind
it's
of-
sort of, is it more organic or targeted?
I would say it's both.
It's both. It's, it really just depends on what we go. Like I said, a lot of it is just creating awareness and just putting things out there, because we don't want it to be dormant. So obviously we're putting posts on there and that type
Yeah.
of thing. And, we live and learn each time. We kind of watch our, especially when we do paid advertising, like, oh, we got a lot of this. And there's a lot of the videos that she showed. Be surprised. A lot of times even those just organically get a lot more
Okay.
shares and views than a paid. So again, that's why we encourage you all to follow our social media channels. We hope you'll help us too, that if you see something like that, share it on your own, because that only helps us and it doesn't cost us anything. So
Oh, no, organic.
yeah, does that answer most of your questions?
No, that helps explain a lot more, because I was just sort of like trying to imagine from reading these documents what the kind of marketing strategy was and sort of where you guys were at. And it sounds like you're doing some work to develop that a little more, which sounds great.
And we do have a good relationship with both Missouri Life and Show Me Missouri Magazine, so we get
Yeah.
discounted ads. They keep us included on some really neat things that we want to participate in. I think it was.
And there's other
in there
magazines
that-
like 417 Feast
Yeah.
magazines that we've kind of picked up some things and have done some partnering either with local businesses to help them advertise, or they'll sometimes pick up stories and write stories about things in our community as well.
Yeah, like they did that cool sort of Scoops article in Feast.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. I understand more.
David, you have a question?
Just to follow up, what Rachel was saying actually made me think of something. I know the Show Me Missouri Magazine, some of those others. Are there any kind of out-of-state things that are worth ever even being part
A
of?
lot of those have subscribers out of state. Again, we're realistic in what we
Right.
do with our advertising, because you start getting into some of those bigger publications, you're paying $10,000 for an ad.
And like
So
you said, we're not Branson, so.
yeah. So, but with those things that are talking about the tour groups, you saw that postcard that I did that we sent out. So a lot of what we try to do is sometimes catch some of those tour groups, maybe on the way to Branson, and they'll do a day trip here.
For example, right.
But a lot of that we target is kind of those bank travel groups, because they love day trips or just overnight trips. So we kind of targeted surrounding states. Again, we're probably not going to send something in a California magazine or something like that. So we're realistic and again, keeping within our budget too.
Yeah, and so you said the videos have hit home a little more, because what other kinds of calls to action
Yeah.
are you finding are resonating with your audience?
What do you, like, with the videos in terms of?
Like what? Yeah, what are people responding to? What,
A lot of what I've seen with some of the videos, it's
Yeah.
actually kind of cool, is people are sharing them exactly like the mayor said, going, oh my gosh, there's so much going on in our little town, or
Yes.
and that type of thing, and people kind of being proud of what's going on.
Yeah.
And then you'll find people that have certain interests, maybe, you know, if somebody that isn't interested in the arts is really doing a lot to share Ozark Actors Theater, or something that Arts Rolla is doing, or something maybe that's, a lot of it just depends on the people. If they're
Yeah.
super interested in the farmer's market, they're going to share those and carry
Right,
that
and
information.
especially like depending on the time of year when you're posting a lot of like Halloween was super popular. There were so many things happening at Halloween.
Yeah.
A lot of people were sharing that just to get the word out of all of the things that were all the haunted everythings, the Boopalooza that was happening downtown. So I think it depends on what tugs at them, like you had said.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're featuring a lot of the kids, like the Bulldog Pride Night stuff that we shared, you know, those get shared a lot of hometown pride in that, so.
And social media is kind of a awkward beast because it's constantly changing. So
Yeah.
you're constantly having to keep up with, and it seems like Facebook is kind of pushing people like us more and more to do paid advertising. Where used to it was like, oh, everything was seen. You got to really kind of find that. That's why I was saying sharing and reposting and that type of thing helps our posts be seen even more, again, without having to pay for ads.
I had two other quick things. One, I just want to say, I think everything I saw you doing with Explore the Fort. I just want to say thanks for, I know you've been plugged in with them for a while already, but I know that there's a lot of folks, not just that are locating there with their families, but also the graduation thing I know is huge when people are coming in just for a short time to see their graduates from one of the schools there and those kinds of things. And I think that a lot of folks there do see Rolla as a little more amenities, a little more things going on than the fort. So like a family's here to see the graduation, they want to spend the weekend doing some other
You
things.
get a lot of
Like-
travelers at graduation day
Right.
into Rolla.
And those graduations aren't just your standard times of the year like they are for high school, and they're all year long for different weeks. So that's a great one to be tied into, and thanks for doing that. The only other question I have was just more about the grants. What's the time frame on them? And like, for example, if there's other folks who are in the community that are looking to put an application in, what are the time frames that you guys look to get those?
The earlier the better.
And I mean,
We've
when-
already-
It's year round.
Yeah.
It's year round. So if you
Yeah.
get one today, you'll look at it and decide.
Depends on when funding runs out. We do set our budget. So if we've already hit our budget for the year, then you wouldn't be able to apply this year. So that's why we encourage people to apply. The earlier the better. We've already had a couple of applications come in for 2020 grants. We're working on a couple of sporting events for 2020 that will be a big impact on the community. So again, if anyone is interested, if you're hosting an event, if you're holding a conference here, whether it's a community event or a huge sporting event, you need to get with Amy. Amy likes to speak with everybody personally that is interested in the grant program to kind of go over the application. It's pretty simple, but there's certain things that we need to make sure that they do include in their application. So she likes to talk.
The timeline is at least 60 days prior to the event.
Yeah.
That way we have a committee that evaluates it. I mean, it's done on a point system, so each member individually evaluates it on a point system, then we get it, and then our board approves it. So 60 days prior to the event, at least. But I always tell people, if you have an event in December and want to apply in January, that just is that.
Do it.
And it is a reimbursement grant. I just want to clarify that for anybody that didn't know that. So for some reason, somebody doesn't hold the event or doesn't uphold their end of the deal, because they have to kind of include like Visit Rolla on some of their advertising things,
They have to
then they don't
include a
get the
list
money.
of their expenditures.
Yeah, we have to see expenditure, so it's not just we hand over a check. There is some checks and balances to the program.
So they should talk to you, or is there a place on the website? How does
They
that
need to
work?
talk to Amy.
Yeah, I like to talk to them individually. That way I can answer questions and make sure that they turn it in and in a timely manner. Stuff's floating out there on the internet, they might get wrong information, so.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep, and one last thing, I just wanted to say, if I heard you right, you guys are negotiating discounts with, you said with the Missouri Life, and Show Me Missouri. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, we try to save money whenever we can.
Yeah,
No.
we've got a pretty good relationship with them, so it works out great.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for answering my questions. I really
Thanks.
appreciate it.
So I had a quick question about the social media. Have you ever thought, in order to get those more shares and so on, this is something that a bunch of the, especially on Instagram, I see a lot of the teacher groups that I have that I follow, they have like these little raffles, for lack of a better word, where you have to follow them and tag a friend
Yeah.
or share a post or whatever to get a chance to win, a $5 thing. And
Yeah, we
you'd be
haven't really done a lot on
surprised
the
at how
tourism
many.
end with that. We've done it a couple times with chamber posts.
It's one of the
It's
things we
okay.
have talked about it, and actually at conferences they've talked about it. So you got to kind of be careful sometimes with some of those. So, yeah, it is something we've discussed because we've even discussed doing that with like photo contests because it's really hard when you start to put together a lot of ads and social media posts. Like, man, we could really use some good photos of this. So we have talked about having photo contests and people, through social media. So we have discussed those ideas. We have not put all of them into action. Instagram is a little bit newer for us. We've done Facebook for a while, so yeah, we've talked
We are
about
working on a hashtag campaign because to encourage people to share things with a specific hashtag, so we can go in and collect some of those photos as well for what Amy was talking about. We're working with the Rolla Downtown Business Association. They're going to be launching a campaign in 2020 called Roaming Romo. It was in the packet, so it'll be a little Rolla, Missouri. So we're working, Amy's helping with that also, working on a little campaign that they can take with them in their travels. And where is Romo today? Take pictures. Romo went to Italy. Hashtag, roaming Romo.
Hashtag Romo
and-
Proud is kind of
Yeah.
what we're moving with on social media again.
But then we're also talking about a couple other hashtags for tourism. We are Rolla, or, different things. We haven't come up with everything just yet, but when it does.
We have a
when
lot
do
of
it-
ideas, just not enough staff to support all of them. So.
Yeah, not enough time in a day to support.
Yeah, but
all
I
of
love
it.
those ideas, and we'll definitely, like I said, we have talked about them, but currently we have not done those yet.
Well, and just a hint, when you do, check your hashtag out before you decide
Yes,
this is
yes,
my
Yeah,
hashtag.
we have. Yeah, yes.
Yes.
We have done that. Yeah, you don't want to be embarrassed with anything that's out
Yes.
there. So.
Carolyn?
So there's definitely more to come with that.
I know this is all about Rolla,
Yes.
but as far as the county, do you ever do something with this
Yes.
small surrounding towns like Newburgh
I'll
Yes.
let Amy elaborate.
and Lyric
Yes,
Life Theater?
actually we do.
That's going. Good one.
I know what you're talking about, Lyric Life Theater.
Thank you. Okay.
Yes, we actually do a lot with, we kind of encompass the whole county because it only benefits us to include the other things, the wineries and other things going on. We are actually, with the Missouri Division of Tourism, our organization is the Destination Marketing Organization. You'll hear us called the DMO sometimes. That allows us to get grant funding through them, but also some other promotions. So yes, if you go look at visitrolla.com, that is not just for Rolla. We promote anything in Phelps County on that website. So we
and
do
Lyric
share that
Life
information.
will have a listing.
Yeah. And so same thing with our social media channels. We try to promote surrounding areas too, because we know they don't have a tourism person. So yes, we do include that. So.
And their fun events only help our community also. So we like to share and partner with the surrounding communities for sure.
So yeah, if you ever know of anything, definitely let us know about it. Cause
Yeah, that's a really good point. So when you're out there exploring visitrolla.com, because I know all of you are going to, if you see something that is missing, please notify us as soon as you can, because we work really hard to stay on top of the site and all of the events that are on the community calendar, but we are going to miss some things, or something might have changed and we haven't updated it on our site. So if you do see something, please contact our office and let us know so we can get it on there.
And the website does list those surrounding area events or attractions as well, and so does our visitor's guide. The visitor's guide has regional attractions as well, so the print guide.
There's no other questions? Thank you. Great
Yeah, thank you
presentation.
guys.
Moving on to reports of mayor and or council boards and commissions. There's 9 of them. Any questions on them? If not, moving on to old business, which we've got quite a long list here. First is an ordinance approving the rezoning of 2050 Old St. James from government and institutional to M1. Tom?
All right, I'm going to go through this quite briefly, if that's okay with you. Basically, I've got the whole PowerPoint presentation, but I'm just going to show you the area map. This is all old business. We talked about it last time, so if you have any questions, just let me know if you have any questions. But basically, this is located on Old St. James Road. It's an undeveloped piece of property. The request is, as you said, to rezone from the GI government institutional. This was owned by the city of Rolla at one point, has been sold. And the owner of the property would like it to be rezoned to the M1 light manufacturing district, which would essentially put it in line with what's adjacent to the property. Did you
Any
have
questions for Tom?
me?
If not, final reading, please.
An ordinance to approve the rezoning of 2050 Old St. James Road from GI, governmental and institutional, to M1, light manufacturing.
Move the proposed ordinance pass.
Motion made and second. Roll call vote.
Jordan,
Yes.
Bolin,
Yes.
Reuter,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Mush,
Yes.
Roder,
Yes.
Eberly,
Yes.
Schott,
Yes.
11 ayes.
Ordinance is approved. The next item is an ordinance approving the rezoning of 4001 Enterprise Drive.
This is an area map of the properties. It's located basically at I-44 in High Point Industrial Park Drive. Has frontage on Enterprise Drive and also the outer road on I-44 and High Point Industrial Drive. The request is to rezone the property, as you said, from the M2, which is the heavy manufacturing district, to the C3, which is the highway commercial zoning district. This would essentially match the zoning district that's across the street from it. The applicant is Quick Trip, and they do wish to construct a gas station on the property. The C3 zoning would allow for that to happen. Do you have any questions for me?
I've got one, Tom.
Yeah.
Do we have the results of the MoDOT traffic study yet?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
No other questions? Final reading, please.
An ordinance to approve the rezoning of 4001 Enterprise Drive from M2 heavy manufacturing to C3 highway commercial.
Move to propose the ordinance pass?
Second.
Motion made and second. Roll call vote.
Allen,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
Bolin,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Reuter,
Yes.
Mush,
Yes.
Roder,
Yes.
Eberly,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Schott,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
11 ayes.
Ordinance is approved. Next item is an ordinance approving the minor subdivision final plat for Quick Trip.
Should look pretty familiar. This is the same property, but a little bit more. The entire property was owned by the Rolla Industrial Foundation, or where are they called? Community Development Corporation. Sorry. So they're the ones who are selling the property of the Quick Trip, but they also own the rest of the property. You notice the property lines don't match what the area that was being rezoned, because and so this is a subdivision basically to clean up those property lines so that it will match what's being under contract to be sold to the Quick Trip. It'll create basically two lots. That to remind you. So with the rezoning, part of the property, lot A on there would be zoned the C3. The remainder would still be zoned the M2. Do you have any questions for me?
As I recall, they were looking for a variance on the sign height. Was that granted?
Yes.
Any other questions for Tom? If not, final reading, please.
An ordinance to approve the minor subdivision final plat of Quick Trip 7067 subdivision and vacating certain easements.
Motion to approve? Second.
Motion made and second. Roll call vote.
Crow,
Yes.
Schott,
Yes.
Reuter,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
Bolin,
Yes.
Mush,
Yes.
Roder,
Yes.
Eberly,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
11 ayes.
Ordinance is approved. Item D is an ordinance approving the minor subdivision final plat of minor alumni addition.
Area map. This is located in the downtown, just north of here. That's the Alumni Association for Missouri S&T on Pine Street. They've acquired additional property, so this minor subdivision is basically to combine their holdings together into one lot to allow for future development of the property, possibly a parking lot. Do you have any questions for me?
There's no questions for Tom. Final reading, please.
An ordinance to approve the minor subdivision final plat of minor alumni addition.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Eberly, Yes. Allen.
Yes.
Bolin.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Reuter.
Yes.
Mush.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Henry.
Yes.
Crowell.
Yes.
Schott.
Yes.
Roder.
Yes.
Livenase.
Item E is an ordinance approving the minor subdivision final plat of Old Wire Road, plat number 1.
Another minor subdivision. This minor subdivision is basically to reconfigure the properties currently as 3 platted lots with a motel built across 2 of the lot lines. This would create 2 platted lots to create an additional property for redevelopment. The property is zoned C2, which is the general retail district. Do you have any questions for me?
There's no questions for Tom. Final reading, please.
An ordinance to approve the minor subdivisional plat of Old Wire Road, plat number 1.
I'll move.
Move the proposed ordinance pass.
Second?
Motion made in second. Roll call vote.
Schneider.
Yes.
Roder.
Yes.
Reuter.
Yes.
Bolin.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Schott.
Yes.
Crowell.
Yes.
Mush.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Eberly.
Yes.
Henry.
Yes.
Livenase.
Ordinance is approved. Next item is an ordinance amending Chapter 37 of the code enacting the local use tax. John?
Yeah, as we know, we were successful at the ballot box on November 5th with a just under a 55% to 45% margin. This will go into effect April 1st, once we notify Department of Revenue, and the ordinance will codify that. Somebody raised the question at the last meeting and noted it properly, that while we had the fully fund public safety in the title of the ordinance, we didn't include it in the codification specifically. So the red that you see in there is being added for final reading, so that the codification of the ordinance makes it very clear what the intent of the voters were at the time, so.
Do we have to vote on amending that since it had a first reading?
Do it a motion, have a motion to accept.
Accept the amended version?
Correct.
Okay. First of all, any questions? If there's not, is there a motion to approve the amended version of the ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made in second, roll call vote.
You just need a motion.
Voice vote for this?
You can do for the motion to amend.
Oh, just to amend it, okay, I thought we rolled it in one. Okay, so all in favor of amending the ordinance signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Final reading of the amended ordinance.
An ordinance amending Chapter 37 of the Rolla City Code and enacting a new section enacting a use tax at the same rate as the total local sales tax rate to fully fund public safety needs, with any additional funds being applied to other general fund needs.
Move to propose the ordinance pass.
Second.
Motion made in second, roll call vote.
Schott.
Yes.
Mush.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Bolin.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Reuter.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Henry.
Yes.
Crowell.
Yes.
Eberly.
Yes.
Roder.
Yes.
Livenase.
Next item is an ordinance amending section 79, 726, and 727 of the code pertaining to cemeteries. Lloyd?
Good evening. So we're asking for the approval for the second reading of the changes in the rates for the cemetery, which were last increased in 2012, and the slight tweaks, I call them, to the cemetery rules and regulations, both of which were approved by the Parks Board previously. And I noted in this one specifically that I wanted to call your attention to the changes. So I'll just enumerate those. Wooden crosses, if used as a monument to display names and dates, properly installed will be allowed. It previously was not in the language. Lot owners may maintain their space by contracting with a local business under a separate agreement. Solar lights are not allowed. That's a relatively new thing that we've seen more and more. Toys and mementos are allowed if placed on the monuments. Previously, those were not allowed. Wooden or brick enclosures are not allowed, and actually haven't been allowed during all the iterations of the various rules that have been reviewed as part of the pricing plan each year that's presented to council. So I did want to call particular attention to those.
Lloyd, can you
items.
explain the second one? Lot owners may maintain their space under a separate agreement. What does that mean?
Well, we have one family that I know of that has probably for the last 10 years or better maintained their own lot space. They just contract that themselves with a business here in town that is bonded and licensed, and they do the mowing and weed eating for their particular area. I said that's been in place for probably better than 10 years, predates me. So given the fact that we've had this historical arrangement with this one family and we'd had a request from another family to do that if they wanted to, we thought we would include the language making it applicable if anyone wants to do that, given those same parameters.
So in all the years here, I've never heard that, number one. Are these written agreements, and do they have things like insurance requirements and whatnot?
Yes.
Okay.
I can't see that being really the norm, quite frankly, but
So the new agreements will have liability coverage, or the existing ones have it as well?
the existing ones and any new ones that will be entered in must have that.
That liability. Okay, thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt, go on.
No, that's okay. So, and you also saw the pictures that we made as part of that to give you some examples of each of these, and including the last ones that we sent that was an unusual situation. Be glad to take any questions about any of that.
Any questions for Floyd? If not, this is a final reading. So, final reading of the ordinance?
An ordinance amending section 7-9, 7-26, and 7-27 of the general ordinances of the city of Rolla, Missouri, known as the Code of the City of Rolla, Missouri, relating to cemeteries and burials.
Move the proposed ordinance pass.
Second.
The motion made and second, roll call vote.
Reuter,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Boland,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Mush,
Yes.
Roder,
Yes.
Schott,
Yes.
Eberly,
Yes.
11 ayes.
Next item is ordinance authorizing me to enter into agreement with Langford Enterprises. Darren?
So at the last meeting, council awarded the bid for the basketball court refinishing at the center to the low bidder, Langford Enterprises Incorporated. Staff is requesting final reading of an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Langford Enterprises for $23,800.
Any questions for Darren? David?
Can you just remind us of the time period which it would be out of service, just so we can?
So they had two options. They could either do it in December and be done before the end of January, or do it starting in February and be done before April 1. Last time I talked to him, they were going to choose the February and be done before April 1. It is the window, but they get 6 weeks once they start. So I'm sure there'll be something coming out when we get a little closer.
There's no other questions, final reading, please.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Rolla, Missouri to execute on behalf of the city of Rolla, Missouri, a certain agreement between the city of Rolla, Missouri and Langford Enterprises Incorporated for center basketball court refinishing project number 501.
Move the proposed ordinance pass. Second.
Motion made and second, roll call vote.
Henry,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Boland,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Reuter,
Yes.
Mush,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Eberly,
Yes.
Roder,
Yes.
Schott,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
11 ayes.
Moving on to new business, the first item is an ordinance approving the major subdivision final plat of South Meadow subdivision.
This should seem pretty familiar. At the last meeting, you did approved a resolution to approve the preliminary plat for the same subdivision. The next step in that process is to do a final plat, and that's what this is. They have submitted their improvement plans for a sewer line and sidewalks. We have provided comments, and they provided responses and revisions based on those comments, and the improvement plans are still under review. Would still be one more review of this second reading of the ordinance, and so I would recommend that the plans be formally accepted and approved before you actually have the second reading of the ordinance. But I think we're ready to go forward at least with the first reading tonight. This property, just to remind you, is at the southwest corner of State Highway O and Lions Club Drive. It is currently zoned R2, which is the two-family zoning district. It's an undeveloped piece of property. This is the final plat. The final plat shows 6 platted lots. However, Lot 1 is proposed to be dedicated back to the city, and the final plat shows all the easements that are needed. Just to remind you that the intention of this property is to develop it for duplexes, and this is the site plan that the developer had submitted for review for that to help kind of determine where the easements would need to be. Just in summary, this creates 5 residential duplex lots. A portion of the property is to be dedicated back to the city with this plat. Some requirements that would normally be required have been waived as a condition of the contract for sale of the property. The property was owned by the city previously. It was sold to the applicant. It appears to meet all other requirements. When the preliminary plat was reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission, it was recommended for approval by a vote of 4 to 2. The Planning and Zoning Commission doesn't review the final plat. Did you have any questions for me?
Tom, I think Mr. Brown did a good job explaining his project to the adjacent neighbor. Were there any follow-up concerns or questions by that neighbor?
I didn't hear from them.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Tom?
Do you
Rachel?
know why it was 4-2 vote?
There was the concerns from the neighbor to the south. You heard a lot of that last time.
Okay, all right.
There's no other questions, first reading?
An ordinance to approve the major subdivision final plat of South Meadow subdivision.
Next item is a resolution authorizing me to enter into a contract for flood plan review. Steve?
The Missouri State Emergency Management Agency, also known as FEMA, along with the Federal Emergency Management Agency, also known as FEMA, has updated our flood insurance rate maps, or proposed an update. They've done the entire county. The city of Rolla is part of Phelps County. We met with them on the 21st of November. They presented their results to us. To say I was shocked would be an understatement. I'm a lot smarter now than I was when I wrote this, because we were able to get the digital information from SEMA right before Thanksgiving. We were able to download it today and count the number of properties that would be in the floodplain in the future. How do we switch this thing off?
There she goes.
Long story short, there's 244 homes that are not in the floodplain now that would be if this rate map became official. That translates into about another additional $500,000 a year in insurance premiums for these properties.
Steve, these 244 are currently in the floodplain?
No, these are added to the floodplain beyond what we have there now. It's a very significant change in our floodplain limits. The map that's been in place since '08 was developed in conjunction with Algar Martin. We submitted all that information to FEMA and eventually got our maps approved as the official maps for the city of Rolla. It's very important, though, that we get into this thing early on. We have 60 days to tell FEMA that we don't like what they've got, and this is what we think it ought to be. So it's imperative that we kind of jump on this with both feet. If we don't, then we're into a map revision, which is a whole lot more complicated. Once this map's published and becomes official, it's a whole lot more work to get it unofficial than it is to do it right now.
And the last published map was 2008?
Right.
Okay.
And it's been
You've done a
basically
lot of
10 years.
work in the last 10 years.
Pardon me?
You've done a lot of work in the last 10 years.
Yeah, I think
So
this is,
detention ponds and things like that.
this is
And I
grossly-
thought the result of those were we took a lot of lots out of the floodplain.
we did.
Yeah.
About 300 some odd, I think. The problem is the consultant that's doing this work is doing it according to what FEMA sets as guidelines for the model.
Slow down.
Those are,
Hold on. The 300 lots that came out of the floodplain, that was our assessment, or that was some governing body said, yes, you're right, Steve, take them out of the floodplain?
Yes, you're right, take them out of the floodplain.
Okay. But what's changed now that damn near all of them are an equal number, are going back into
The
the
model's been changed, the storms that they use in the model have been changed. So basically what we need to do is to make sure that they use the correct rainfall curves and the model is adequately shows what our detention facilities are doing. Very little consideration was given to any of our detention facilities in developing this model. It's kind of like you could build a pole barn with a chainsaw, but if you try to build a nice home and use that same chainsaw, it's not going to look very good. So the pole barn is out of the county where the land's wide open and there's no improvements. That's the model they're using to reflect the floodplain that's in Rolla, and that's just not accurate. So we're going to have to get with them to make sure that we get that model as accurate as possible.
Steve, did we know, did y'all know that they were doing the update on the map, and were you given any opportunity to input?
Well, sure, and we told them that we had meticulously went through this, and we'd like for them to use our model. It's all been approved, and if there's a problem with our model, tell us what we need to do to fix it, and we'll be happy to do that. Well, that's not what they did. They just held a meeting with 2 days' notice on the 21st and said, here it is. You got 60 days to
Okay, so who dropped the ball? There's the state, there's the consultant that we use, and then there's us. Who dropped the ball?
In my estimation, FEMA is the one that's dropping the ball.
And Steve, go a little higher.
Wielding the
What are some of the issues happening all over the country that
Well,
are sort of having them relook at all
You
maps?
get me down into politics. The flood insurance program is broke, and it's going broker every year because, now this is my opinion, and you can take it for what it's worth. The federal government developed a flood insurance program that did exact opposite of what they wanted to do at the beginning. They encouraged people to develop in the floodplain because they gave them subsidized flood insurance. So that encouraged development in the floodplain. So all this development takes place, floods happen, tremendous losses, the whole system's going bankrupt. So they need more money. So they go back and they do all this remapping, puts everybody, a whole lot more people in the floodplain. That means more insurance premiums, helps make the system more solid.
You put more people in the floodplain to get more insurance dollars that are being paid by us, the taxpayer. That stinks.
No, our premiums.
This will go up.
Well, no, it's taxes, because we don't pay flood insurance.
No, we don't pay it.
Our tax money is
No,
going
no,
to
no.
pay for the
This-
people that
No,
keep
no,
building.
no.
These are premiums.
Like if I'm in the floodplain now, I have to
okay.
pay a premium.
So we have 244 residents
Yeah.
that are going to wake up and say, oh, all of a sudden now I have to buy flood insurance?
Well, it depends on how their loan institutions are set up and their loans, but it's going to cascade because when it comes time for them to sell their house, they're going to find out these flood insurance, so the house is not going to be worth as much.
Exactly.
So they're going to end up losing money no matter how. Either they're going to pay it in flood
Do these
insurance, or they're
244
going to pay it
citizens
value of the
know
home.
this?
Not yet.
Do these 244 citizens know this?
Pardon me?
Do these 244 citizens know this is happening?
No,
So
I
nobody-
just found out about it.
So it seems to me somebody ought to tell them.
I don't want to unnecessarily alarm a lot of people because I think the model they're using and the curves that they're using are wrong for our situation in Rolla. And Algar Martin agrees with me. Dr. Patterson he lives, eats, and drinks this stuff. That's who's going to redo the model for us and help us submit all this to SEMA in the way of a protest. And he's willing to do that for $15,000 because the model's already been built. It just needs to be tweaked a little bit.
So what's in your estimation, what's the chances that SEMA will accept and whatever work he comes up with and adjust the map accordingly?
Well,
do we have any idea?
They should 100% accept it. Whether
Should-
they will or not, I
should.
don't know. That's something I can't answer because that's another governmental agency I have no control over.
And are there other communities?
Absolutely.
That are in the same boat
Yeah,
here?
and I need to get in on the ground floor with Algar Martin because they're gonna be so covered up with this stuff that it's gonna be difficult for communities. There's not that many experts in this field that are around of this caliber. They could take something like this on. And I think we can prove to them that what we have is plenty adequate.
And Steve, we proved it to them 10, 12 years ago.
Right.
We had them do map revisions, pull it out. They've come out with new updates as a result of losses in the program, and they're basically saying, cities, prove to us that your models were inaccurate.
And they're saying that the model's been updated to reflect the new curve numbers due to climate change, which.
If you're on the coast, maybe
I
you
don't want to bore you
are
with a lot of
impacted.
details, but the time of concentration for our storms in Rolla is very small because it's a small, we live on top of a hill. So it doesn't take very long for that rainfall intensity to reach that point where it becomes critical. That's a very short duration storm, 15 minutes. They're using 24-hour rain days. I mean, it doesn't, in order for us for a 15-minute rain to reflect the kind of flood limits, it'd have to be a rain of biblical proportions.
Steve, the deliverable on this is the end of January. I think we owe it to those citizens if they end up being the flood map to let them know. I'd be pretty ticked off if I waited till my lender or I go to sell my house and find out that I was now put in a floodplain.
I mean, like I said, I've just today figured out which.
I'm not saying you do it now, but as soon as we get the data, whoever's in there, I think we have an obligation to tell them.
I'd like to get the resolution passed, to get Patterson going, so we can, the very first thing we do is to make sure we get this information to SEMA and make sure what the results are, and then we let everybody.
And how fast, it's a government agency, so how fast do they move?
I'm sorry?
How fast will SEMA act? So our contract is gonna be by January 22nd.
We have 60 days.
SEMA gonna sit on this for a year?
We have 60 days to go into their system and put pins where we think there's a problem.
Wow.
So I've got 244 pins to put on the map. And then we'll submit the information along with that to back up that claim.
But that's the 60-day window that we're
Yes.
in now.
Right. And I've
We just
already
started.
wasted 10 days. because
So
it takes
all of this will
holidays
be
to get
known
here.
in 60 days, 45 days.
Yeah.
45, okay.
Well, let me clarify. We have to have that information to them. It may take SEMA and FEMA months to still turn that data around, but they won't be increasing premiums until
Yeah,
that
we
appeal
got,
process.
I think we had plenty of time to let the citizens know what's going on, because they're not gonna make this decision right away. But let's make sure we got all of our I's dotted and our T's crossed before we let everybody know what's going on. I don't wanna
I'm
unduly
with you,
upset people.
but I don't think the first time they find out is when they get a bill in the mail
Oh, no,
from somebody.
absolutely not.
Okay, we're on the same page.
So I know where some of these are located. Could you run down and let us know where some of these areas are located, please?
I can give you, I don't know if you could, if you could tell by looking at this, I've got just a kind of a graphic here. If I can find two places on here's a spot, and here's that same spot. I mean, you can see that here's what we think it is, and this is what they think it is, a whole lot bigger. And this is the worst. The Dibble Branch is the worst, because none of those detention ponds were considered in the model at all. Now,
Steve, is it right that both those creeks would basically be where the Acorn Trail runs, more or less?
say that again?
Kind of runs along the Acorn Trail, what we were talking about?
Yeah.
Burger's like over by Winchester.
Yeah, I mean, if you go by, if their maps are correct, parts of the Lions Club Drive are built in the floodway, which you couldn't do.
No, Burger Creek. Where's Burger Creek?
Burger Creek is the creek that goes up through the farm.
That's what I thought. Okay. Yeah, the one over by, I keep calling it Winchester.
Which is the one that goes by the courthouse and comes back by Stevendale and then?
Carter Creek, Love Creek.
That's Burger. Carter.
What's Spring Creek?
Carter Creek.
Spring Creek is,
Other side, north side.
that over there. We actually sit on top of the hill. That flows into the Kansas City Core District, and the rest of the city flows into San Luis Core District.
So Steve, other than the implications for homeowners, are there any implications for your operations or
Absolutely.
the operations of the
It's going to
city?
make my job very difficult because we have to issue floodplain development permits to individuals that want to do something in the floodplain. And if I have 244 more properties that have homes on them, I have to, in order to keep flood insurance in effect for our citizens, we have to regulate all of them. And it's a lot of work. And we'll have to right now we don't even publish the floodways because all of our floodplains are basically in the creek limits, with the exception of a couple of areas. So our position is, we don't let anybody do anything in the floodplain. But if we have this big wide floodplain with existing homes and everything else, it's going to be a lot of people that are going to be affected. It's going to be a lot of work on us to try to regulate it. And we have to do that in order to keep our program certified by the state as participating in the flood insurance program.
Okay.
We have audits on it, that they come down and audit our stuff.
Yeah. So my question, I just want to clarify, is part of the reason this came about for all municipalities around the state, it sounds like, is because the models have changed based on climate change? Is that what you're understanding? Like the modeling of how much water is going to be increased is changing based on how much rain's coming down?
They have tweaked the model a little bit to be able to put more information in it, but the climate change part of it is the rainfall curves. How much rain you could get in a certain period of time, like a 24-hour rain, 15-hour rain. How many inches per hour equivalent does it fall?
Right.
And for large basins, yeah, we're having more rain.
Right.
Over
We're having
24-hour
100-year
period. No
floods
question
every
about it.
10 years or 5 years or 1 year.
Yeah, I mean, those big basins, no question. There are rainfalls that with the rainfall curves have not been very. They don't predict very well what's going to happen. We've had some very significant rains in Rolla, 25-year rains, and everything's worked fine. Now, there's a difference between a 25-year and a 100-year, but not the kind of differences they're talking about.
But they've changed the model. Is that part of what you're saying, though?
They've changed the model, but they've changed the curves, the rainfall curves that you pick the intensities off of. Those rainfalls, you pick the curve though based on what your type of concentration is, how long it takes for that first drop to hit the ground and peak that system out. That's your time of concentration. There's nothing in the city that's 24 hours time of concentration. That's for a huge basin like
Right.
like the
We're
Rolla
down
or
below
something.
somewhere. We're
Yeah.
up top, right?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Can we read the resolution?
A resolution authorizing the mayor of the city of Rolla, Missouri to execute on behalf of the city of Rolla, Missouri, a certain contract for floodplain review with Algar
Martin, yes.
Martin and Associates Incorporated.
A motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Next item is a resolution authorizing me to execute a lease with the Able Commission for the Holloway House.
The Achievement for Better Lifestyles for the Elderly Committee Incorporated has requested the city extend its building lease contract, which, like the contract for services, set to expire December of this month. The new contract, if approved, will extend to December 31st, 2021, with a one-year extension option. Under the contract for the building lease, the city is responsible for the exterior of the building and the major building components, while Able is responsible for minor interior items, as well as the subcontracts, subject to final approval by the city. Questions about that piece of it?
David?
Can't remember where I saw it, but I thought I read something in here about a 30-day ability for either side.
Correct.
Can you explain that? Is that after the 2 years, or is that like during the 2 years?
During the 2 years.
Okay. So during the 2 years, either side can say,
Yep.
and that would give the other side 30 days to make a decision.
Pretty common.
And I was going to say, I think that's been in the contract
language,
for
yes.
20 years.
Yeah.
Which, and we mean also nobody's ever really exercised that on either side.
Correct.
Correct.
Any other questions?
And just to clarify, so they've been using the Holloway House for like 20 years or longer than that, their whole 42 or?
want to say the first contract I saw maybe was 1989. It's
Okay.
either 1984 or 1989.
All right, thank you.
If there's no other questions, can we read the resolution?
A resolution authorizing the mayor of the city of Rolla, Missouri to execute on behalf of the city of Rolla, Missouri, a lease between the city of Rolla, Missouri and the Able Commission Incorporated for the Holloway House.
Move the resolution pass.
Second.
Motion made in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Resolution is approved. Next item is a resolution authorizing me to execute a contract for services with the Able Commission for providing senior citizen services.
I should note also that the ABLE administrator, Susan, and members of her board are here. So if you have questions, that you'll be available. The contract for services, which also expires in December, addresses the programming for seniors and defines the expectations in the agreement. You have attachment of that, plus an example of what they do specifically that they provided, along with a copy of their newsletter, which is one of the things that we talk about in their promotion and publicity of their events. This contract also would be extended for 2 years with a 1-year extension. Terms remain pretty much the same as they have in the past all these years. Did increase things by $500. The attached contract provides for the $5,500 annually, pending approval by council, payable to ABLE, and this payment helps cover utilities and insurance on the building, allowing ABLE's fees to go toward coordinating their various senior programs. Questions?
Any questions for Floyd? If not, can we read the resolution?
A resolution authorizing the mayor of the city of Rolla, Missouri to execute on behalf of the city of Rolla, Missouri, the contract for services with the Able Commission Incorporated pertaining to senior citizen services.
Move resolution pass.
Second.
The motion and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? To the board members, thank you very much for what you do. Claims and/or fiscal transactions, we have none. Next section is citizen communication. Is there anyone that would like to speak to city council?
My name's Christy Hahn, 593 Sycamore Drive. Not used to being up here. 593 Sycamore Drive is my address. My name's Christy Hahn, and I'm here to represent Friends of Holloway House. We've got a few members over here. We're a new group. We started about a month ago, but we're growing. We've got 70-plus members. I'm going to read from here to keep track. I'm here to plead with you to reuse Holloway House instead of demolishing it. The ideal would be to keep it as a senior center, made ADA compliant with an elevator and the appropriate repairs. That's the least expensive option. It's all at a lower cost than it will cost to demolish and rebuild a brand new senior center like the senior center advocates are proposing. And I would also like to ask to consider another location. We want to find a win-win scenario for a new senior center. We want to honor our senior citizens with the appropriate accommodations while also honoring our city's history and the rest of the city's population who are interested in saving Holloway House. 70% of taxpayers polled by Rolla Preservation Alliance want to save the Holloway House. There are more than 800 people who are a part of that group, which is clearing up some common misconceptions about Holloway House. Ryan Reed, who runs Rolla Preservation Alliance, is a historic preservationist who lives in Nebraska. He has a vested interest in Rolla as his hometown. He's consulted with multiple architects, one of whom is Paul Homan, for example, an architect from St. Louis. He was the project manager for several large rehabilitation projects in St. Louis, including the former arcade building. The 18-story building had been vacant for nearly 40 years and was rehabilitated to contain nearly 300 apartments. Reed has consulted with multiple, I've already said that, sorry. He's given multiple architects the 20-year-old feasibility study for Holloway House to read over, and they all said it would be more expensive to demolish the Holloway House and build new in comparison to rehabilitating the house. This is a quote from Rolla Preservation Alliance's Facebook page. These architects read over the feasibility study for the Holloway House created in 1999 and stated some items weren't high priority items and could be phased to a later date, if at all, which would lower the cost of the rehabilitation. Demolition is irreversible, and we want the city to make the best, most well-informed decision, especially if taxpayer money will be used. We want to work with the senior center advocates. We plan to talk to them. Again, we're a new group. We've only been in existence for about 30 days. My question is, why should a new senior center be at the expense of another historic building being torn down? Rolla has a reputation for tearing down historic buildings. The train depot, the Uptown Theater, Kelly Hall, Rail Cafeteria, the Ritz Theater. These buildings were a part of our collective identity. People are still haunted by the loss of these buildings. In the brief period of time I've been doing research on the Holloway House, the consensus I've received has been, Rolla tears things down. Can't we also use Holloway House as good PR for the city? Other nearby towns turn their history into tourism, like Cuba, the Mural City on Route 66, and the Wagon Wheel Hotel, for example, Herman. I mean, look at the Public House, Soda and Scoops, Lisa's Salon, Benton Square, Phelps County Bank on Pine Street was reused, and would downtown be the same if Phelps County or if Alex's Pizza had decided to move rather than renovate those spaces, or demolish, for instance? Rolla has a lot more to offer than just the university, and as an alum of S&T, I think we should be concerned about investing in the uniqueness of what we have to offer to retain students beyond graduation. And so does the new chancellor, it seems, Dr. Mohammed Degani, who questioned our region's growth in the Phelps County Focus article on October 24th. Degani cited that since he took the helm as chancellor in August, he's grown concerned with statewide figures showing that of the state's 9 economic regions, Missouri's S&T's South Central region home has seen some of Missouri's slowest economic growth. Quote, in fact, the job creation rate was negative, Dr. Degani said, for a university which for 150 years has been a crown jewel of engineering and technical education. That shouldn't be, and there are many examples where the opposite has happened. He went on to say, why shouldn't there be 20 MOSIs in the Rolla area? Why shouldn't there be 20 Brewer Sciences? Those two companies put together have at least 500 employees, and each were a brainchild of people associated with this university. I ask, what do we need to do to have such a multiplier effect so research doesn't just end up in a publication or a thesis, and a student has no other option than to leave this area rather than have the option of staying and building up the economy? I believe the connection Dr. Degani is making is related to this issue about Holloway House. I've lived in Rolla for most of my life, and I believe Rolla's reputation for tearing down historic buildings seems incongruous with its message to, quote, shop local. Excuse me, sorry. If you erase what makes Rolla unique, you're driving traffic to other cities and towns where people like to have a unique experience. I know that Chamber of Commerce was talking about the tourism, and their efforts to bring people in. I believe it's more than just the events that we're having, which is great. We have a great community, but I think we need more than that to interest people. My husband and I, for instance, we lived in Savannah, Georgia, and Charleston, South Carolina for about 8 years, where the tourism industry is built on historic preservation. If you tear down what makes Rolla unique and erode our collective identity as a town, does that inspire loyalty among our citizens to shop local? So the bigger picture is, to me, this isn't just about Holloway House, although it is about Holloway House. This is also a turning point for the city of Rolla. Are we going to tear down another historic building to construct a brand new building with no architectural significance when it costs more financially, culturally, and aesthetically to our city and its taxpayers? What happens to the morale of our citizens who are frustrated by Rolla's reputation as a city who just tears things down? Doesn't that decrease quality of life for all the not senior citizens? again, we want to work with senior center advocates to find a solution, but we need more time and more questions answered. And I'd like to end by saying, it's just like the stories my 98-year-old grandmother tells me. History is comforting. It's part of our identity. Without the places where those stories took place, the stories lose their context. So thank you for your time and consideration.
Can I ask you a few questions?
Yes,
Your
please.
name again? Your name?
My name's Christy Hahn.
Christy. I've been sitting up here for 26 years, and I can't tell you how many conversations we've had on the Holloway House.
Right.
So I want to just ask you a couple of questions.
Sure, I'll try to answer them, but
It's
I'm
never
new.
been established that the Holloway House is a historic building. It's been established that the Holloway House is an old building.
Well, that's
There's-
actually,
there's a
I found
difference
not,
between
that's a misconception, actually. I found Ryan Reed is willing to come and talk to the city council about the facts about Holloway House. He told me that there's something, the city could designate Holloway House to be nominated for the National Historic Register.
I know what we could do. I know what we could do, but right now, that's an old house. My second point.
I would argue that it's more than an old house, sir.
Okay. We can agree to disagree. So since Saturday, I joined the ranks of being a senior citizen. I'm intrigued why seniors would want to go there.
Well, I
I
don't think-
personally would not want my mother or my aunt
Right.
to go to that building.
Right, I'm just talking about cost, and I know you've been talking about cost, and I know the city is a business. So I'm talking about what I've learned is the least expensive option is to rehab Holloway House. Now, we're in the process, we're a new group. We're talking about going through becoming a nonprofit or pairing with another nonprofit and raising money and trying to find another use for it. Arts Rolla is there, I know. I'm a poet, I'm a writer. I would love to see that as a gallery space instead of the center, which to me is a terrible place to show art because it smells like the pool. And it's noisy. And having lived in Savannah, there was the Flannery O'Connor Childhood Home, for example, and they used to throw these fancy cocktail parties
I'm
and
sure there was
fundraisers.
a sugar daddy that supported that facility.
I don't know the details, but I know, I have faith that Rolla has so much potential, and I feel like, I'm from here. I have a vested interest. I'm raising kids here. It's a great place to live. Don't get me wrong. I'm just so frustrated, and I'm getting a lot of people who are really frustrated, and they don't know what to do because, anyway, to answer your question, in the Holloway House, Ryan Reed, historic preservationist, has done a lot of research on this, and that's where I'm getting all of my information from. He's been
I don't know Ryan Reed. I'm sure he's into
Okay.
preservation. I'm sure he's going to
Right.
cook
He's
the
from
book, so
here.
to speak, to make it
Right.
historic.
Anyway.
But let me come back to my second point.
Right.
Why would we want senior citizens to be
Sorry.
in that building?
Thank you. I get off track.
That still blows my mind.
Right. Well, that's not the ideal location, and I know I agree on that. So why can't we consider another location? Why does it have to be the Holloway House to be torn down? And Rolla is a small town, so when it's centrally located, to me, Rolla, it's 10 minutes to get anywhere in Rolla practically. So I don't think that that's an issue, especially if it's already, the Rolla Towers and the Rolla Nutrition Site is, there's the busing and whatever is the transportation that's happening with the meals, and I don't know all the details. But
Every day goes by, that building is going to cost more and more and more.
that's our next.
And it's a race against the clock. It really is.
My husband is the next citizen who would like to speak about that. He has questions about the upkeep and the costs, and we still have a lot of questions that the city we'd like the city to answer to help us to better inform us. So I appreciate your time.
I just have one
You-
question.
Hold on.
Sorry.
You're welcome to any and all the information we have.
Wonderful.
But it is a race against the clock.
Well, I know,
I mean,
that's
that
true.
building is going to take hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then we're left with an old building that meets code that's really still not conducive to senior citizens, in my opinion,
Right, but has the city explored other options for the senior center,
such as
another building that the city owns?
the city is not driving a senior citizen program or
Right.
initiative. That's a citizens group that's doing that. So
But
all
you
the
own the
city
building
has
that
said, the city was asked if they could make it work. Is that site available for their applications and grants. So the city council did not make any decision to knock it down. They did
Right.
not make any decision yet to sell it.
Right.
But they did make a decision to allow them to continue to study or pursue that option.
Right. I mean, I'm asking a lot of questions, and I'm new, so forgive me, I don't know all the answers. But all I can say is, this is my perspective as a private citizen who is interested in the growth and the Rolla's success. So,
I'm a little intrigued because when that group came, there were repeated questions asked
What group?
about the group that is looking for a senior center. To establish a
Senior Center Advocates. Mhm.
There was multiple questions asked by the people up here as to, did they speak to Able, did they speak to other stakeholders, did they speak to the person whose family originally owned that?
Mhm.
And everything we were told is, everybody's okay. Rather it not happen, but they were okay with it.
Well, I
So
saw-
now I'm intrigued that now there's a group coming forward and saying, no, we don't agree to that.
Well, I just found out about it. In fact, that's where I'm getting my information, is Rolla Preservation Alliance, and I was alerted to it. It's been on the national, what is it called? Places in Peril. The Preservationist Society is alerting. This was in St. Louis. It was on St. Louis Public Radio that Holloway House is in danger of being demolished, and this was recent. So I found like I said, in about the past month or so, I met with Jody Eberly. I've talked to some other people. I'm in Ward 4, and try to figure out how to band together. But this is born out of, like I said, the history of Rolla, which is seems to be, to tear things down. So, where was I going? I'm sorry.
I can
Not
help
a
you.
senior.
I'll ask a question.
Banding together is good, but at the end of the day.
That's the city council meeting from June of 2018. I located that segment that I think you might be referring to with Greg Stratman and Joanne Zack. In that meeting, I noticed he's speaking in very vague terms. There are no specifics, and I haven't yet to find the specifics about who he's talked to, when these conversations took place, what specifically was said. There's a lot of vagueness going around, and I'm finding facts from Rolla Preservation Alliance. So.
Again, your facts are coming from somebody that has a vested interest in keeping a building. So I
Correct.
don't know that you could transfer that to necessarily what that citizens group is. Meet with them. There's a group of people that have been working long and hard on a senior center.
No, we plan
So
to. That's what I was saying. We
I
plan
think
to.
if you're talking about vagueness, is they can't tell you what the new building is going to look like because they're not that far along.
I've seen renderings in the Phelps County Focus, I believe. Is that true?
Artist renditions, could be,
Okay.
maybe.
Anyway, I appreciate your time, and again, I will be doing more research, but this is what we have, and I just wanted to plead with you all for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Said your husband wants, oh, David, you have a question?
Well,
for
I
your husband?
can, while she's sitting and he's coming up, I can just a general thing that I want to bring up is I do agree with placemaking idea that historic places make a place, and I do think Rolla has a horrible history of tearing down historic places. There's no doubt about it. The thing that when I'm kind of thinking this over, I really want to be able to answer in my mind and have the public understand as well is what makes the Holloway House, and I don't have these answers, so I'm kind of putting it toward you folks and any of the people out there that have that. What makes the Holloway House a historic place? What's its architectural significance? What are those pieces that make it more important to preserve? I have toured it myself. A couple things that struck me from first arriving there and checking it out. It was like, hey, it's got these columns. It seems like it's, this old architecture with the columns. Find out they're kind of just like fake add-ons at the end. So that's something I think people see that and they're like, whoa, these beautiful columns. Like, how would we get rid of them? They're kind of an add-on that really don't, architecturally, I don't think they have as much significance as maybe the old farmhouse part of it.
I can answer that.
Okay, sure. If you want to come back up, that way everybody can hear you.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I asked that. That's a common misconception. Ryan Reed says it's something with the, thank you, it's right here. The changes to the house occurred in the early 40s. Booker Rucker, who lived in Rolla, his uncle was the architect who made the changes to the house. He has images that he shared with Ryan Reed of changes being made. He claimed it was in the 1940s when the Williams family moved into the house. The Williams family donated that former ranch acreage in the 60s to become Burwan Park, named after Bert and Juanita Williams. The changes are part of the story of the house and property. The way the National Register works is if you have a period of significance, POS, This refers to the span of time during which significant events and activities occurred on the property. For this place in particular, you could argue that the POS starts from the construction of the house to when the property became a city park. Roughly, the POS for this building could be from time of construction to the time it became a park.
Do you know the time of construction on it?
It was the earliest that I've been able to find is that there are elements that note that the construction was started in the year 1901, and I believe that's with the Places in Peril, the history write-up that they did on the property.
Right.
And I don't have any reason to doubt the veracity of their write-ups.
Okay, appreciate it. Like I said, for me, it's a learning experience too to understand what are the elements of it that do make it something that other than a normal, like you said, old house that is like, hey, it's worth preserving this because there aren't many of this feature or that architectural thing. And like I said, when I toured it, I was having trouble seeing those things, but they might be underneath layers that I can't see.
Absolutely. And, pardon me, my name is Bill Hahn. I live at 593 Sycamore. So like you, I have questions about the property, and I don't have answers. And I have questions about the plan for that property, and I would hope that people on the council might be able to at least take a moment's pause before deciding what to do next with that piece of property. So I'm just going to go through my list and hopefully not stumble too terribly. What problem is the proposed senior center attempting to solve? And does the city even agree that it is a problem? What are the problems that are, quote, rather serious with the building, as was in the write-up for the commentary with this evening's resolution? Does the existence of these seem to indicate that the lessee, in this case the Able Commission, has not upheld their obligation to Clause 4 of the lease to, quote, not permit waste or damage of the premise in any way? I would argue that if waste or damage has come to the property in any way, that it is the lessee's obligation to have maintained it and to not have allowed it. And if we as a city have continued to re-enter a lease where the lessee has not upheld their end of the obligation, shame on us. Does Able have any issues with the building? How many times have they contacted the city about problems with the building? In the November 14th, 2019 inspection report available for public review, what exactly were the issues found, and are they immediate? Who on city staff conducted the inspection? And what are the, quote, basic minimum standards referred to in the commentary? Historic buildings are commonly exempt from certain codes depending on the code year that the city uses. So what year IBCE codes does Rolla use, and what variances are there for historic buildings? What maintenance has been deferred in the name of near-term cost savings that are now potential causes of these problems? And who was responsible for those decisions? What would an ongoing operation and maintenance costs of a new senior center at that site be to the city? What would the city be obligated to do? And from those obligations, what study is that based on? And is that study publicly available? How have previous projects fared versus their proposals? Specifically the center, Kohl's, the Forum Shopping Center, and West Side. Additionally, recently the city started a project to define a neighborhood plan for Schumann-Berwan. Wouldn't a major project like the senior center kind of cut the feet out from under that? Basically saying to the citizens in that neighborhood, we want to know what you want your neighborhood to be developed. But we're going to do this anyway, because we already know what's best for your neighborhood. If half the capital for a new senior center comes from a grant to renovate existing properties, what other city-owned properties have been considered? What other non-city-owned properties have been considered? Does it have to be city property? There are plenty of other nearly ready-to-go properties already exists. For example, there's 15,000 square feet of property between Planet Fitness and JCPenney. There's 15,000 square feet of property between Harbor Freight and Hobby Lobby. There are 2 open storefronts next to Missouri Vein Center just south of Hillcrest on Highway 72, and two more open storefronts in the Forum Shopping Center between the liquor cabinet and Factory Connection. Not to mention the eyesore properties on Highway 72 near 63. How much would it cost to do the upkeep on this building? What could the property be used for to become revenue neutral? And how much would it cost to demo the building? Is any of the money to demo or build a new senior center taxpayer money? And who would own the new senior center after it's built? One last point I'd like to point out. 30 years, if that's how long the lease has been, at $5,000 a year comes to $150,000, which is roughly the amount that was cited in the 1999 study for the repairs.
You ask a lot of good questions, but and I'm not going to attempt to answer them, but I'll take a whole bunch and bundle them up in one answer. The city's not in the business of building a senior center. So just understand that that initiative that is being talked about is not a city project. The city's not building it. The city's not going to operate it. The city's not going to subsidize it. That is an initiative outside the city. The only connection to the city is the city has made a particular parcel of property available for consideration. That's as far as this council has gone. They have not said, it's your property, there's no price tag on it or something like that. It's available for your initiative. So the city, just to cut to the chase, is not in the business of building and operating a senior center.
Please give due consideration to all the questions. They're in the record. Thank you for your time, sir.
Yeah. We can, but most of those questions have been asked before, but that's okay. Any other
If you could
questions?
direct me to the answers, I'll be glad to.
Yeah, send them to City Hall. We'll give you the answers, by all means, by all means.
I just want to make a comment that I do appreciate you both having the passion about this issue and the fact that I do enjoy seeing people who want to participate in their government. So thanks for coming and at least sharing your ideas and concerns.
John, how long will you need to answer those questions? Some of them are pretty cut and dry, but.
Some are simple and some we simply don't have answers to. We don't know what it costs to demolish. But
Yeah,
we've got
please-
lots on our files, and we'd be happy to schedule a meeting and visit with the seniors group. They would talk about some of their answers as well.
We'll answer the questions, but I strongly suggest one of your next stops is with that group that's looking at a senior center. That's not a city. I mean, we don't even belong in that meeting. To the extent that we can. To the extent that we can.
The city council meeting.
I'm sorry?
We're a new group, and we have our third meeting tomorrow, so it's in our plan, but we had the holiday, and we're gaining momentum, but we are new, so forgive
Right.
us for.
A lot of your questions, they have asked and answered themselves as well. So that's what I'm saying. Some of these issues have been talked about, but meet with them. Meet with them. As you started out the conversation, if there's a win-win,
Right,
I'm sure they're going to be just as happy
yes,
because they're the ones that are out trying to raise millions of dollars for
right,
this.
and I admire them and I appreciate it, so we
Yeah.
wanted exactly.
So
what-
please put them on your list to
Yes,
speak with.
thank you.
Any other citizens? Mayor and the city council comments. The first item is a motion appointing Ray Schweiker to the Planning and Zoning Commission to complete the unexpired term of Monty Jordan. I'm asking for your consent to do that.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Second is, with your consent, I would like to appoint Mike Fleischhauer to the Parks Advisory Commission, more specifically to fill that role regarding our Tree City, our intended Tree City certification dedication.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Any other council comments that are not on the agenda? Comments for the good of the order? We have two items for a closed session, one dealing with real estate, one dealing with litigation. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Bolin,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Reuter,
Yes.
Schott,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
Proud,
Yes.
Butte,
Yes.
Roder.
Yes.
Beverly.
Yes.
Schneider. Yes. Thank you.
Steve.
Oh, I noticed you don't have to.
I'm not old.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Just don't watch
I'm
me
getting
get up.
worn out.
Just don't watch me get up and.
So Steve.
Shit, I don't like signing stuff like that.
Steve, am I?